As we approach the end of the school year, once again, it's time to salute some of the best scholar athletes chosen for the Boston Globe's All-Scholastic team. And we'd like to welcome as our guest from the Globe, the high school sports editor, Bob Holmes. Thank you very much for being with us, Bob.
Well, thank you for having me.
I know a lot of viewers think of this time of year in schools, it's time for baseball and softball, but here in Boston, we're talking about some other sports as well.
Yeah, it's time for everything, especially track and volleyball. There was a lot of good competition taking place this year. The track, the fastest guy in eastern Massachusetts was a city guy, Kevin Facey from Burke High School. Ran the 100 meters in 11.54, which is probably about a third what I would do it in. He can move.
What about volleyball? We don't hear much about that, but I guess one of the students who were chosen.
Jean-Yi Yang, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is a two-time All-Scholastic for us. Latin Academy has a very good program. It's one of the city programs that translates well outside the city, and they did well in the state tournament. They had a tough first-round opponent, which is always a challenge, but they have a very, very good program, and he's a two-time All-Scholastic for us.
Of course, you also have some students in baseball and softball. Talk about softball.
Yeah, softball is tough. We had, in addition to the baseball player you mentioned, two from Boston Latin. And Boston Latin, as you know, plays in the dual county league, so they play with the Concords and the Lincoln Sudburys, so the competition is very, very fierce. But we had Mary DeMora, and she'd had a fantastic season. She was the MVP of the dual county league, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, that's quite a big deal. What about baseball?
Yeah, and baseball too. Again, MVP of the dual county league, a Boston Latin kid. Very rarely happens again because when you think of the state powers, you think of the Lincoln Sudburys and schools like that. But Boston Latin in baseball and softball this year was very, very good.
And I imagine in that league, some of the kids in those competing teams, they're not just playing ball when they're going to school. They must be doing something over the summer.
Absolutely. Kids these days are playing year-round. The high school season is actually the kind of the appetizer to their baseball and softball season, because the season ends and they were off to various parts. There was a big softball tournament in Pennsylvania. Baseball begins all the summer league, the various tournaments and all the leagues around here. So there's a lot of activity once the season ends.
Well, whether we're talking about somebody playing ball or somebody who's running track, I guess some credit goes to the organizations in the schools, the coaches. Anybody you think would be worthy of mention here in Boston?
Well, I think one thing that's underplayed is the success of the city track program. Those kids are the kids who have the best success outside the city, which is always kind of the barometer we use. The fact that Kevin Facey was was the fastest student in eastern Massachusetts says a lot about the city track program. And O'Brien Latin Academy have become really, really strong, not only in the city but outside. And actually this spring, probably the best competition that was held all year was the city track championship, which Latin Academy won by 1 point over O'Brien, which is almost impossible to do in track.
Well, when you say this is a good program, what are the ingredients we're talking about?
I think depth is one of them. It's not just 3 or 4 kids. And we had talked, I think, after the winter and the success of Brighton High School, which
the football team.
Yeah. But that takes 5 to 8 kids for basketball, 15 to 20 for the sport of football. In track, you really need 20, 30, even 40 kids because you have so many different events. You have the field events, you have the running events, and I think that shows the involvement of kids in the school, and I think it shows what the coaches do in the school too.
Of course, the other thing that's in the news today is an idea for an overhaul of White Stadium at Franklin Park. John Fish at Suffolk Construction is going ahead with a proposal. Talk about the conditions there right now and how much this stadium is used these days.
Yeah, the stadium doesn't get enough love, and love these days means money. They have a grass field, and they've always wanted an artificial turf field. You use a grass field too much, and it just becomes a muddy quagmire, and you can't use it. There are so many programs that would benefit by using White Stadium, which is a very, very cool place. It's a nice place to watch a game. It's a nice place. It's a nice area. There's all sorts of good things there. They just need to put some money into it and fix it up. They've tried a little bit over the years. They got the lights going, so there's some night football in the fall. But they could really use a new track for all the track teams we just mentioned, and also an artificial turf field.
Right. We should also remind people if they want to look over the whole list, check out some more names, any place they should go online for that?
We moved all of our All-Scholastics from Boston.com to BostonGlobe.com. It's hard to keep track of these days, but everything is online and lives there forever.
Right. Thank you very much for being with us in the Boston Globe.
Thank you.
Bob Holmes.